All right.
Oh. Okay.
Hello, my name is Jeff, and today I want to highlight for you the challenges faced by the deaf community and how we can mitigate them. As someone who's received 2 ear surgeries in the past and experienced minor hearing loss, this topic is very important to me as it spreads awareness of the discrimination towards the 11 million Americans who are deaf or hard of hearing. With the information I share with you today, I hope to inspire you and challenge you to create a more deaf-friendly environment. So I'm going to give a little bit of background about what deafness is all about. Then I'm going to talk about the challenges that the deaf community faces both within and outside the community. And then I'm going to talk about some ways that we can minimize some challenges experienced by that deaf community. Let's begin with learning about deafness. So the Institute for Quality and Efficiency says that sound waves are received in the cochlea of the inner ear and is measured in decibels. Higher levels of decibels leads to pain and discomfort. A normal speech range is about 60 decibels, and a normal hearing threshold is about 0 decibels. Anything 20 decibels or below that 0 normal hearing threshold is considered deafness. There's 4 types. There's mild, moderate, severe, and profound deafness. What is sign language? The National Institute on Deafness and Other Communication Disorders classifies it as a complex language that utilizes hand movements, facial expression, and body posture. Here we have this woman citing the word tired. As you can see, she's moving her hands downward, she's changing her face, and she's shrugging her shoulders. American Sign Language, also known as ASL, is the most commonly used language in America. Sign language in general unifies those who are deaf or hard of hearing, and it unifies them in order to face the struggles that they face. The struggles that the deaf community face allow society the opportunity to believe that those who are deaf should be seen as lessers compared to those who can hear. And that all begins with using incorrect identifying terms. The National Association of the Deaf insists that you avoid the terms silent, mute, and hearing impaired because it implies that those in the deaf community are unable to communicate at all and are thus seen as inferiors in society. Greek philosopher Aristotle coined the term deaf and dumb because he believed that those who are deaf were incapable of hearing and learning and thinking reasonably. Another problem are non-deaf friendly spaces. If you take a look around you, there's lots of things that can distract someone who's deaf from learning. If you look around you, you'll find that outside noises from the windows can distract you. AC units can disrupt the frequencies interpreted from hearing aids, and even the type of carpet that's used on a floor can interfere with the frequencies received by hearing aids. Another issue is deaf people going to movie theaters, even if they have closed captions. America's Next Top Model winner Niall DeMarco, who is deaf, experienced this when he went to go see Black Panther last year, only to feel quote-unquote so disabled after the captions that were displayed on his device kept skipping lines and scenes. Here we have a tweet by Mr. Niall DeMarco. As you can tell from this last line, he wasn't too happy about his experience. AMC Theaters compensated him with movie tickets, and by the look of his face, he wasn't too happy because that didn't solve anything. A third challenge that the deaf community faces within the community is that sign language is not a universal language. It's a very common misconception. There's actually between 100 to 300 different types of sign languages used throughout the world. And although these languages represent the different struggles of not hearing properly, it does imply that they have their own histories and struggles of their own within their own communities and countries. Here we have a map of different sign languages used throughout the world. As you can tell, French Sign Language and American Sign Languages are the most commonly used languages used. But even if you knew either of those languages, you wouldn't be able to communicate with someone who's deaf in Germany or China or Japan. There's many ways we could be accommodating and accepting of the deaf community. The most proper way so far has been the Americans with Disabilities Act. It basically was a legislation that made public and private entities provide better accommodations for those with disabilities, including those who are deaf. This stands for ADA. These services include equal employment opportunities, updated services in public schools, and even entertainment events. Here we have Miss Amber Galloway Gallego. She is a famous ASL interpreter. Here she is interpreting for Kendrick Lamar at Lollapalooza. Another solution is technology. Hearing devices such as hearing aids, FM systems, and cochlear implants help deaf people hear better. But it is important to realize that just because you have these devices does not mean that it cures those who are deaf. Without these devices, they are still deaf. Another technology that has been surfacing much attention lately are smart gloves. Essentially, the idea is whatever you sign, these gloves will audibly interpret them. Now, I know that sounds like a great idea, but it actually received much critical backlash from the deaf community. Here we have 2 researchers presenting their talking gloves, and they got a lot of negative feedback because these gloves themselves only interpret hand movements, not the facial expressions or the body postures that I explained earlier. Those 3 components are equally important. You need all 3 of those, not just hand gestures. Integrating deaf people into a hearing society is just as important as integrating deaf people hearing people into a deaf society. We can do that in 3 different ways: education, communication, and acceptance. Number 1, education. Advocating for more ASL studies in public schools, as well as learning basic ASL, can go a long way for you the next time you meet someone who is deaf. Communication. Communicating with someone who is deaf helps those who are deaf feel like they are included in society. I once helped out someone at work who was deaf, and I was signing to her, and I realized that I'm not completely fluent in ASL, so I just started writing with pen and paper, and I was surprised because she was really happy. She accepted the fact that I didn't know it fluently, but she appreciated the fact that I kept trying to communicate with her. Acceptance. We have to understand that not everyone who is deaf wants to hear. Even though if they use those prosthetic devices, it doesn't stop them from being deaf, and on top of that, it is their choice to use those devices. Being deaf is part of their identity, and if we force them to hear, it's retracting them from that identity. In conclusion, the deaf community is a proud and enduring community that faces countless challenges on a daily basis. Until we dismantle those inequalities, again, nearly 11 million deaf or hard of hearing Americans will continue to experience discrimination. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for lending your ears.
So Kirsty, what did you think?
I think you did a fantastic job. So it was like super well organized. I initially, when I saw the slides and all like the words that were on them, I was like, oh no, it's gonna get distracting if it stays that way. But then when you separated it and kept coming back, it was like you used it as your transition, so I appreciated it more. Your opening was amazing, but I do wish you went into like more of like, wasn't that hard to understand, like explaining why you use that as your opening instead of just jumping right into it. But you did have a lot of information that you had to go through really quickly, and I applaud you for getting it all out there in a way that we could understand it. You did an amazing job.
Thank you.
All right, I like the demonstration that you do at the beginning, and I like the way it leads into the topic. You've got a very clear statement of your purpose to begin with, but then you get a second purpose statement right before you present the preview that makes it sound like it's a persuasive presentation. And I thought that that was a little bit confusing. You do have a preview of what the supporting structure is going to be like, but it sounds very elaborate, and when you get to the body of the speech, I thought that there was way too many sections in the material. It's like you're trying to cover way too much information about this subject. I know it's supposed to be an introduction to the whole concept and community here. You could do your speech just about open and closed captioning. You could do your speech just about the technology of the gloves, and you could do your speech just about the cultural criticisms that were made by the deaf community concerning the gloves or concerning the use of implants and all that kind of stuff. It's just like, I feel a little, it's a survey kind of speech, and so I feel like we're dancing on the surface of most of those issues, and just as I'm starting to get a little bit of interest in one thing, we switch topics again, and I thought that was a little confusing. The visuals, the fonts, I think, are a little small for the places where you have script on the screen. They probably need to be a little bit bigger. I couldn't quite figure out why you had the picture of the woman translating for Kendrick Lamar, was it? In that particular section that you had. It's not that the picture was inappropriate, but the place that it appeared in seemed to have nothing to do with doing that particular thing. It was about something completely different, and it felt like, I don't know if you had it to show earlier and this just came up late, or if there was some reason that it was in this particular spot that wasn't clear. That I thought was a little bit problematic. And that was one of the things that I saw repeatedly throughout the presentation. It's like, just as soon as we're getting one issue going, boom, we're changing to a different topic. And like I said, I think it's just, you're trying to do too much in the material, and you needed to maybe focus a little bit more. But there was very good research in the presentation. There were some things about the subject matter that were very intriguing. I think you do a nice job speaking to us, and I think you found a good topic to talk about also. It just needs to be edited. Edited for speaking, as they say. All right, thank you.